Hello, everyone. Welcome to the project kickoff meeting for AbbVie Fair Pay System Improvement. As you all know, that we are meeting here to officially kick off this project that is for the Fair Pay System development at AbbVie. Basically, this meeting is to discuss the agenda for our project and to finalize actually we have finalized the deliverables, but just to kind of incorporate them into our systems and our paperwork and get ahead and give a go to the project. So here we go. Um, of course, you've all been working with AbbVie or in AbbVie, so you do know history of AbbVie. We started working in 2013, separated from Abbott, and since then we have been expanding with time. We have our business in more than 170 countries, and which is one of the reasons that is driving the Fairpay tool. And um, it has been so important for us to enhance the usability of this tool because more than 170 countries are depending on this tool to kind of um, give their HCPs, healthcare professionals, the desired and required pay. So basically, Fair Pay is a tool where which AbbVie has been using for some time now, and this project would be to enhance it. Um, the purpose of this project is to this meeting is to kick off the project for the Fairpay tool enhancement. And sorry, we want to make Fairpay as current as possible and make its best possible use in order to give the um, best usage and output to the company and its employees and the HCPMs who are using the tool. The agenda obviously is, as mentioned here, project overview. I'll be discussing with you the scope and team organization. We have already gone through that. As I mentioned earlier, we're just trying to finalize and set it in stone so that we all have a clear idea of what the roles and responsibilities of each person in this project are. And we can move ahead with firm go. We would also be discussing the major deliverables, the deadlines, the assumptions and risks that can and are involved in the project. And ultimately, we want to set forth the acceptables for this project. Basically, as I mentioned, I just want to give an idea of the Fairpay tool. Of course, all of you present here are aware of the tool and what we are willing to do with it. But just to reiterate, the Fairpay tool is a system in which we have put in the data for maximum and minimum pay rates for each country based upon healthcare professionals' experience, based upon their study, their achievements, or whatever special researches they are doing. And once you try to, when AbbVie wants to hire an HCPM to give a lecture or do a speaker program or something, they what we would do is we would go into the system and put in their details, and the system would give us an idea of minimum and maximum amounts that we can pay according to the Fair Pay Act to those employees. And if that rate is not acceptable, we can definitely have an exception to it. But this is basically what the system does. It makes it easier to kind of follow the rules set up by the government for minimum pay and maximum pay and things like that. Uh, the scope of the project is really simple. We do know that we want to update the system. AbbVie does, let me go back to the previous slide again. As stated in the last point, AbbVie does have the system. We just need to enhance it and make it compatible, make the changes, update the system in such a way that it is more user friendly. And since all the affiliates, over 170 affiliates, they don't have an idea, all of them don't have an exact idea of how to use the system or how to make the best use of the system. And so we need to give them training. Um, excuse me. The scope is simple. We can finish the updation on time within budget, set budget, but of course, we know that the users are not well versed with the system, and so we need to train them. Training, of course, in 170 countries, over 170 countries, is has to be virtual in most of the cases, and through means like WebEx or Adobe Connect, and it is not simple to kind of put together a training for all the affiliates, um, with maintaining different time zones, different deadlines, and everything. But in order to do that, we have also decided to put together a training document, which can serve as a reference guide for them. So once after the training, if they are stuck, they don't need to go, all around places asking questions. They can refer to the guide and get their answers simply, if possible. Team organization, as stated here, we have myself. I'm the project manager. I would be looking after the successful completion and handover of the closure of the project. We have the project coordinator, who would be Katie Perry, and she's looking after the coordination between the IT teams for making changes in the apps, the area heads who would suggest changes based upon the various country policies for every different countries, all the different countries they are looking after, and of course reporting on a monthly or weekly basis in order to keep a track on the project success and project status. We also have various 5 different area heads involved in the project because we need their guidance to kind of to set up and update the system accordingly based upon the policies and rules for the respective countries in all 5 areas. We have the technical head and technical coordinator to make the changes in the system and update it accordingly, to do the UAT testing and see if the system works error free and there are no major roadblocks. We also have a document specialist who is Adele. She'll be documenting everything in order to ultimately develop a reference manual for all the affiliates involved. And she would also be working on survey forms at the end so that we can do a survey after training. And we would be doing a test run of the system, live system, and we can have survey forms after that as well, in order to make sure that before we close the project, we are aware that there are no major roadblocks, and if there are any, we can ensure to cover them up uh, to provide solutions to those roadblocks. The major deliverables for this project are going to be the updation of existing fare-based system, um, making sure that the functioning is smooth. So of course we would be doing QA testing. Then all the affiliates should be trained on the system. We we need to provide proper training documentation, and along with that, we also want the users to check the live system, and we want to ensure that they have tested the system and given us feedback before we close the project. I'm sorry. The estimated effort that we think would go into the system is a preliminary budget of $20,000 with an additional funding of $10,000, which may or may not be used depending upon the situation. But any expense above $30,000 would be considered a cost overrun. We also thought about the infrastructure, but we do not need any other infrastructure except the office settings which we currently have. Definitely, we would need technical facilities like WebEx or conference rooms to conduct WebExes or Adobe Connect meetings, virtual meetings. Um, Except for that, we are assuming that the project should be finished within a timeline of 6 months maximum. We don't think we would need additional time frame for that, but as of now, the determined time frame for the project is 6 months. As in any project, we did make a few assumptions in this project as well. There are risks and there might be issues. We don't want them to be, but of course, we are assuming that the project should be completed within time, in budget. But and we are also assuming that since the project would be when the project is completed, we would do everything through the system, and so the paper trail should be reduced. The risks to this project are that it is definitely an agile life cycle because we would make the changes based upon area heads suggestions. We have to do QA testing time to time, and so it may lead to an increase in the time frame, as I mentioned earlier. Sorry, the only issues that we see here would be that we have to train more than affiliates in more than 170 countries, and the time difference or the usage of technology can be an issue. But of course, we can overcome that. It's just that it might lead to a delay in the project time frame. Project acceptance criteria, which we have set forth in order to kind of set up a level to before we close the project are, as mentioned here. One of the criteria for project acceptance would be successful run of the submissions and system through the IT team. Before we make the system live again, we want the IT team to make the changes and successfully test run those changes. We also want the affiliates to try and test run in the system. We do that as well. We want them to fill out a satisfaction form as stated earlier. After the test run of the system, we want them to complete a satisfaction form after the training of the system. And we also want the training module to be complete and ready for affiliates to use as a reference guide. So these are the criteria that we think should be met successfully in order to declare the project to be successfully completed and close it. I think I had only this to kind of bring forth to the team at the moment, and I would try to I would like to give the team some time to think over it. And if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, definitely I'm open to thoughts, suggestions, concerns, and we can make changes because we have not set anything in stone at the moment. We are meeting today to finalize these details that we have set in our earlier meetings and kind of um, document them, to be honest. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them. And I think there are no questions, so I guess we'll close it here. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Thanks a lot, guys.